And I says to the guy,
Yeah?
no, that's not my dog.
But it wasn't encrypted. Oh,
Hey, Kandyce.
Kandyce.
Hello, Mark. Hello, Tom. So good to see you both face to face.
It's amazing. We just finished up the last classes before the community meeting.
Yeah, we were just backstage signing some autographs. You know, people really like the new version 4 transition training.
Oh, what have you been up to, Kandyce?
Well, I've been busy reviewing a lot of the stakeholder questions we've been getting about PCI DSS version 4 since it came out this past March.
I bet you got some good questions.
You know, I really did. But there were some topics that kept coming up time and time again.
I love stakeholders, and I love questions. I bet that I can guess what those top 10 topics were.
You think you can?
Yeah.
Well, hold on, because I want a part of this, but just a second. Hey, can we put that game board up on the big screen? All right. I'm going first. I'm going to try it out, because I know people are asking about the customized approach.
Well, you're certainly right about that one. Plenty of questions. We had a large retailer ask, does the customized approach replace compensating controls?
Yeah, I can see how they think that, because they are both methods of validating a control. But no, the customized approach does not replace the need for compensating controls in a PCI DSS version 4 assessment.
Yeah, and technically, the compensating controls are an option within the defined approach and are to be used if an entity is unable to meet a requirement as stated.
So if you're an organization and you can't meet a requirement because you have a business or technical constraint, then you would use a compensating control. But if you're a more mature company that maybe is doing something a bit more advanced, you might choose to use the customized approach.
Yeah, using the customized approach, organizations choose to meet the objective rather than the defined requirement. In fact, organizations can use the customized approach and the defined approach in the same requirement. Now that's flexibility.
But maybe a little complicated?
Well, if you want to know more about the customized approach, we did just release 2 blog posts on it on our website. Also, you can come visit us tomorrow, where we'll talk more about customized approach in separating fact from fiction.
All right, Mark, you've had a guess. I better have a guess now. What about the cryptography updates?
Yes, and specifically with relation to sensitive authentication data, or SAD, entities want to know what's different about SAD handling for version 4. There is a new requirement for encrypting any SAD stored prior to authorization.
Yeah, I never know how new I consider that requirement. PCI DSS has always allowed for SAD to be stored pre-authorization, but I guess we're saying specifically now that it has to be encrypted. We've also got SAD being mentioned in some other requirements, like the minimizing data retention.
You know, speaking of cryptography, what I think people should be talking about is hashing.
Oh, come on, Mark. I checked this morning. Literally 0 people are following your hashtag SAD security. I think people just want to be happy.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about. Because with version 4, if you're protecting your PAN using hashing, now you have to use a keyed hashing algorithm, which is quite a bit different. And I just suspect that many organizations are going to have to reevaluate how they're using that and maybe even rewrite some of it.
Because of the keyed hashing algorithm. Right, OK. I had to guess. You had to guess. Oh, have you got another guess?
Well, I don't know if it's new to requirement 4, but our assessor's still asking about remote assessments.
As a matter of fact, they are. And it does relate to PCI DSS version 4. We've had some stakeholders ask, why is there a new section for remote assessments in the ROC template for version 4? And with the recent travel restrictions and such, the council has actually also developed a remote assessment guidelines document.
Ah, is that the one that was published last year?
Yes, that's the one. And it gives insight into how to effectively manage assessments for all of our programs when the assessor is not able to be on site. So now in the ROC template, there is a section to document those remote assessment activities.
Right, so that's the section where the assessor is going to describe any work that was done remotely and if it was done to the same equivalency as on site.
Yeah, I think we've got to understand what sorts of things count as remote testing. So if an assessor receives documentation like policy and procedures before they get on site, or they do some follow-up interviews after going on site, then both of those things would count as remote testing activities and need to be recorded in the report on compliance template.
Yeah, think of it like this. Remote has to do with where the evidence is physically relative to the assessor.
Yeah, that's a good point. But if anyone still has any doubts or concerns about that, they should really check out the upcoming presentation, Seismic Change or Mere Ripple, Changes to Reporting for PCI DSS version 4.
All right, I was reading through the reporting template, and I spotted something new in there, and I bet it's a hot topic. TRAs.
Have you invented another three-letter acronym?
Yeah, sorry, Kandyce. What are they? Yeah, Targeted Risk Analysis.
That's much better. We have had some questions about what a targeted risk analysis involves and when it has to be performed.
Does it replace the need for an organization-wide risk assessment?
Yes. The targeted risk analysis is just that. It's targeted, looking at specific risks in an entity's environment, and then developing controls to help mitigate those risks in that particular environment.
But am I right in thinking that there's two types of targeted risk analysis?
Yes, I think Lauren mentioned that earlier. Because there's one that deals with the periodicity, like how often an organization is going to use some of their controls. Like, for instance, how frequently they're going to perform the physical inspections of their payment terminals. But then there's the other type that is used with the customized approach.
Yeah, within the standard itself, we've been careful to explicitly ask for a targeted risk analysis to determine the frequency of an activity in requirements that need one. But if an entity would like to perform an activity more frequently than the requirement states, they can do so without a TRA.
Oh, whoa.
What? What?
You just said TRA.
No, I didn't say TRA.
Yeah. Are you gaslighting me?
Okay. Regardless, I bet I can guess another one because I know I was a little surprised the first time I opened up the standard and I saw the length.
Yes, actually. Our stakeholders want to know why PCI DSS version 4 is noticeably larger than PCI DSS 3.2.1. And I will say, yes, we did add a few requirements. Lauren mentioned them. But the bulk of the length comes from the new layout, additional guidance added to the standard, as well as the inclusion of the customized approach objective.
I hate to be that guy, right? But just imagine how much shorter it would be if I'd been allowed just to make up three-letter acronyms all the way through. But maybe that would impact the readability. I do like the fact that the glossary is now part of the standard.
Right. It's no longer a separate document. I mean, personally, I'm really happy about the guidance. There's just so much additional guidance that really helps people understand the requirements.
Yeah, and that's thanks to feedback from the industry. You know, we were able to add or clarify guidance and applicability notes throughout. And applicability notes were really added to provide that additional context for each of the requirements. And with the sunset of PADSS, additional information was added about the software security framework. And that'll really come in handy to entities, I think, as well.
Yeah, I noticed that the report on compliance template had got longer as well. But does page count matter? Kandyce, you and Brandy are going to be talking about that tomorrow, I think, in your session on reporting.
That's right.
All right, I'm running out of, what have we got? This is harder than I thought. What could it be? Let me just look down here. Oh, now I remember. How about those new rules on certificates?
Yeah, so someone specifically asked about the new requirement that we have that mandates an inventory for all certificates used to protect data in transit. So the question was, does the entity need to maintain an inventory of certificates used by their third-party service provider as well?
Oh, wait. So, what a question. We've got an entity, and we've got maybe a service provider, and whose job is it to maintain that inventory of certificates? Maybe that's a shared job? I think I'd need more details to answer that question.
Tom, I thought you had an answer for everything.
Well, I like to think I've got an answer for everything, but I am human, you know. Actually, that sort of thing is a great question for a QSA, because they can go on site at the entity and actually see what's going on there in order to make a determination. So,
Right, because there's bound to be situations and technology that the PCI Council just couldn't predict. And so that's one reason why we really strive to keep the PCI DSS technology neutral. But if someone has read through the guidance and the objective and our FAQs, and they still have some sort of super geeky question like, do I need to set up a certificate revocation list? Well, then you can send that in to us. But Tom, exactly how are they going to send it in to us?
well, if you're watching this over the interwebs, then you can always email us questions to the council. But if you're here today, then I definitely recommend going downtown to the vendor area where there's a PCI office. Kandyce, Marc, and I will be there, and other SSA employees to answer questions.
So am I allowed to guess one of these hot topics?
I don't know whether there's any hard and fast rules to this game.
Well, I bet service providers have questions about how PCI DSS version 4 impacts them.
Right, because there have been changes. Like how the standard now has the term service providers, but we also have the term third-party service providers. Are those the same thing?
Well, the term third-party service provider, or TPSP, is new in the standard, but it's just a type of service provider, right? And there also are different requirements for service providers specifically, and those ones can be found in the Summary of Changes document. But be sure to make sure that you check all of the new ones that are specific to you.
Right. Another term I saw was how we had changed the old shared hosting providers to now be a multi-tenant service provider, which really emphasizes that they're just another type of service provider.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the Summary of Change document, available from the document library. At the end of the Summary of Changes document, there's a table, and it lists out all of the new requirements and whether they're applicable to everybody or just to service providers, and it also says when they come into effect as well.
Right, right. I'm seeing we've got 3 more to guess.
Plus the bonus.
Plus the bonus. Customized approach is already there. So the new partial assessments.
So partial assessments themselves are not new, but the opportunity to document them in the report on compliance and the attestation of compliance is new for PCI DSS version 4.
Yeah, I saw that in the ROC template as well. But what does it mean to be compliant with a partial assessment?
And can you be compliant with a partial assessment?
And that's one of the common questions. You know, if an entity undergoes an assessment and one or more of the requirements is not tested, then that's a partial assessment. And if all other applicable requirements are in place, then the entity can be compliant with that partial assessment.
Yeah, we were just talking about that in class, the not tested. Because not tested means an assessor literally has not looked at that security control, so they do not know if it's in place or not.
So let me get this straight. If I'm an entity and I have an assessment, and all of the findings are in place, but there's at least one requirement that was not tested, right? Then that means I had a partial assessment and I'm compliant?
Right.
But what about not applicable? What if I got a system which is not applicable and part of it's not tested?
See, that's what's interesting. It depends
Trainers, this is a quick fire round, so we're just going to go quickly through
Sorry, Kandyce, sorry.
topic.
Okay.
Sorry.
But if you do want to know more about this topic, come to our discussion about reporting tomorrow. We'll get into the nitty-gritty there.
Okay. Oh, I want to know, where is the best poutine in Toronto?
Oh, poutine, cheesy chips. Oh, what about multi-factor authentication?
So not surprisingly, this has generated a lot of interest. There is a new requirement that mandates multi-factor authentication for all access into the CDE. So now entities are looking at their multi-factor authentication solutions to make sure that they're sufficient to meet that new requirement.
All right. That means time for a deep dive into MFA, right? Like, for instance, like now, if I make remote access into my CDE, how many times do I need MFA? And is multi-factor authentication the same as multi-step authentication? And we got these new requirements. Do they replace the old requirements? And why are you looking at me this way again?
This is a quick fire round, Mark. We're just going to go quickly through each of these. Sorry.
Oh, let's just say we've got a number of FAQs and information supplements to help answer that question. Oh, and my go-to place to look at our FAQs and documents, now, these days, I've been looking at more on my phone because we've got the PCI SSC app, which slightly annoyingly is different from the community meeting app. But if you go to your device app store, you can find the PCI SSC one, and then you can read FAQs like me. All right. How are we doing? What have we got now?
Last one, but we haven't yet talked about organizations that are doing a self-evaluation. And I bet they want to know about any changes to the SAQs.
Certainly. Our stakeholders want to know about what has changed in the version 4.0 self-assessment questionnaires. And I will say, we went through an extensive exercise to make sure that each of the requirements still meets their particular SAQ. But where we did make changes, it was to ensure that the SAQs continue to meet the evolving security needs of the payment industry.
Right, meaning that some of the SAQs now have requirements that they did not have before, like how SAQ-A now has additional requirements to address online skimming.
And I would like to point out that applicability notes have been added throughout each of the SAQs. And again, they provide that additional context for how the requirement can be implemented in their particular environment.
All right. It looks like we got them all down there. We got all 10 up there. But we've still got a couple of minutes of this presentation. Is it time for the bonus?
The bonus, yes. But hold on for a minute. I'd like to open this one up to the audience. Does anyone here have a guess? Go ahead and just shout it out.
Wait. Did someone say quick reference guide? So I think the question would be, is the PCI DSS version 4 quick reference guide available?
I am pleased to say that they are available.
Yes.
And the document can actually be downloaded as a PDF on our website. But if you're at the community meeting here, then you can come to our booth or our office hours to get your very own printed copy.
While supplies last. Well, I think that about wraps up our quickfire round about some of the top questions. But if any of these topics have interested you, I really encourage you to see the associated presentations, or as Tom said earlier, just come by the PCI SSC office and you can ask us directly there as well.
Now I've got you guys trapped on stage. I was thinking, what if we've got a connected system, and then we've got multi-factor into that, but that one's not tested, and then we've got a not